Hi everybody, it's Thea. Welcome back to Garden Goddess Tarot, and welcome back to a video that it's about high time I made. Today we are talking about a no BS top iconic tarot decks of all time list. I don't think I've ever officially made a video of a list of my best tarot decks ever. So this is what we're gonna do today. Just so it's out there, so it's in the world. I get asked kind of all the time, and throughout the years of making videos I tend to talk about all of these, but I've never put them together in their own little video of best decks ever. Also, this is very hard to do, and I didn't want it to be an hour long, so I tried to keep it a sensible amount. If you had no decks, if you had no tarot, and you were coming to this video kind of just looking to see what don't mess around, don't give me a list of 100, what decks should I be pointing my energy towards from that kind of beginning state, with the intention of only having a few around. These are the ones that I would highlight for you. These were my choices. So without too much of a preamble, ultimately it's a top 5 list, which is again so hard, but also so easy at the same time, because it's well, obviously these ones, and then I feel bad for all the ones that don't get included because there's so many other amazing decks in the world, but it has to be these ones. So yeah, and then there's 1 or 2 honorable mentions because I have to, but we'll do those at the end. We're gonna start with number 1. And this works as a great catch-all list as well, if best beginner decks, these. Hands down. Boring, unexciting, typical, expected, beautiful, amazing, holds within it the secrets of the universe. This, you'll want one of these. This little puppy, this is my Waite Smith. This is the deck that started it all. Oh gosh, this deck made its way to me 2003. So some math for how long I've had it. And it's where it all started, and I think it's a great place to start. If I woke up with amnesia tomorrow and forgot everything that I ever knew about tarot, and then you asked me now, knowing what I know, what I would do, where I would start. So after all of my years of experience with tarot and decks and systems and whatnot, where I would start, what I would pick up first if I had access to any deck ever, it would be a version of this. This is my yellow box version. This particular version doesn't even have Pixie's writing on the bottom. Pixie, Pamela Coleman Smith, the illustrator of this. Most of the versions of this Waite Smith tarot deck that you can get now have her handwriting as the titles on the cards, but this one does not for some reason. I don't know. It says copyright 1971 US Games, but I have no idea when this particular version of the yellow box deck was printed. It's got the plaid backs, which again are still standard for the yellow box, and the box is long gone. That tuck box was destroyed years ago. It did not last, but the box still looks the same, so I'll put a picture of it up on the screen for you. But it's a classic for a reason. It has so many layers that you can't even imagine by just looking at the cards. This one, the colors aren't the most appealing. There are other versions with more appealing colors. So I would say you're welcome to kind of explore the different color variants. The Centennial Edition is always a classic. I would try not to do a black and white one first off, just because the way color kind of interacts with the images is important, and it will help guide your readings, and really it builds those tarot muscles. It gets your brain thinking about it as well. And if you're a complete beginner, and when I say Waite Smith, you have no idea what that means. Rider's a publishing company, which was the original publisher of this version of Arthur Edward Waite's tarot deck. So the Waite in Waite Smith. It's Arthur Edward Waite, a member of the Golden Dawn, and he commissioned this deck with Pamela Coleman Smith, which is the Smith and Waite Smith who did the illustrations. Which there's a great deal of influence from Shakespeare in these. There's, you know, our astrology kind of hidden in, Hebrew letters, the color theory, fool's journey, the hero's journey. There's, you know, influence of different characters from history. There's even little digs at Crowley kind of hidden in the artwork, supposedly. Which, foreshadowing, but there's mythology kind of woven in its own gentle way. There's just so much, and there's an infinite amount that you can learn from this. Maybe we'll do another video down the road of books to pick up with this. I started with the Eden Grey books, very classic. Not necessarily maybe the best choice. There's some really great ones. The Ultimate Guide to the Tarot is quite good. Tarot for Yourself. The oh god, there's so many. I'll probably put a list down below. It's number one. It's number one. I only have one deck. Had to get rid of everything. This guy. I've also, since probably you've seen it last, I did a micro trim. So if I don't know if you remember, the first couple times I showed this, it had some really like gnarly, janky, chewed up blue edges. And it's the whole thing was covered in bits of wax, and it had like bodily fluids all over it, which was fine. It's all part of its magic, but it was getting kind of worn in a not quite sexy way. So I thought it was time to give it a micro trim. And actually I did on camera. There is a video of me micro trimming this beautiful deck with a just trimming the smallest part off the edges just to clean them up again, and it's given it an entirely new lease on life. It's fresh, it's like new again, while still holding all of the experiences it's been through with me. So anyway, this one, it's here. It lives in this amazing Dimitri bag from the Ukraine, handmade tarot bag, and it sits up on the altar all the time, and it only comes out for very special, very important readings. So not that I don't have other copies of the Waite Smith that I use for, it's great for clients. So good. It reads so clearly. Love putting reversals in it as well. It's just so good. It's where I started, and it's where I like if anybody comes to me, I recommend Waite Smith. So that one. The next deck, number 2 on my top 5 tarot decks ever. Oh, it's such a heavy, weighty list. It has to be. It's here. It's a Crowley deck. This is my greenie. This is the Aleister Crowley Thoth tarot deck. I mean, like, I should have just considered these as like obvious ones, but I think it's worth giving them a time of day to talk about them, because they are so good. This is another a little bit later than the Waite Smith. This is called the Thoth Tarot. Thoth Tarot, Tootie Tarot. There's many ways to say it. And if you're unfamiliar as well, Thoth is the Egyptian scribe deity, who's also a small fraction of the kind of combination god that is Hermes Trismegistus, where a lot of the hermetic principles that are applied to tarot kind of come from. He is synonymous with Mercury, the Roman god, as well as Hermes, the Greek god, among other things. He's great, he's cool, he's a fun guy. Very well rounded, lots going on, lots to look into. That's who this deck is named after. This deck it's 78 cards, it's standard tarot. If you've heard or seen a Thoth deck and been horrified, don't be. It's just a tarot deck. I tell people this all the time. It's not spooky, it's not scary, it's just a tarot deck. But it's a great way to kind of learn how to read more energetically as opposed to scenically. So if you're really stuck at getting the meanings for your card readings from like the position that people are in a deck, releasing your brain, and not maybe, we're not going to jump fully into Marseille pips yet, but we want something a little bit more of that middle space between pure pips and kind of scenic based action, people doing things kind of images. This deck is great for that. Because the way, other than the majors, they're so beautiful. Oh my goodness, that High Priestess. And the courts. But let's get back to a minor arcana. Just the way that the images, there's no people, but you can see the way the color and the bits in the image, like the swords and the cross and the background, all interact with each other, and it gives you a distinct, the energy of those interactions gives you a distinct feeling, which is really where you get the meaning from that card. And then you can really play on the astrological associations with this, which is where it's very like heavily based. So you've got your zodiac and your planetary energies front and center for you. The color is also front and center, and then geometry and composition front and center. And then, of course, integrate what you know from your Waite Smith learnings into this as well, because it's all just tarot, and you don't have to, you know, necessarily leave what you know about one deck behind when you pick up another one. You read it the way you read it, right? And I'm personally a fan of smushing it all together and getting the most kind of well-rounded perspective at a card reading. But the other thing about this one, which is quite handy, especially if you are a beginner, the minors have keywords on them, which are kind of, they harken back to the Hermetic titles. It's just really fun. How does one describe the Hermetic titles? They're very grand. There's a little bit of arrogance and pomp about them, but at the same time, they're really fun. So yeah, Lord, root of the power of fire here with the ace, and we get the way the flames are actually yods and they're arranged in a certain arrangement, and the color and the direction, and it's just spicy and exciting and energetic and powerful, and it's just the way the color traces through the cards. You can really realize which cards are tied to which other cards, so that when they both come up in a reading, you see the connection between them really clearly, really easily, without even thinking too hard. Like, this deck is almost like a tarot cheat sheet. It really is, if you kind of know the language it's speaking. So anyway, it's incredible. It's amazing. 7 of Wands, Valor, Mars and Leo. But yeah, and for this one, there really is, like, there's like 2 or 3 books that I would recommend for it to start off with. There's of course Aleister Crowley's Book of Thoth. Did I even say? Created by Aleister Crowley. Illustrated by Lady Frieda Harris. She did most of the work, to be quite honest. But yeah, that one is a great, you gotta read that at some point. In bits and pieces, you don't have to read it back to front. I highly recommend not reading it back to front, actually, because that'll drive you absolutely insane. But it's good to dip in and out of. Lon Milo Duquette's book, Understanding the Thoth Tarot. Is it Gerald Ziegler's Tarot Mirror? It's a good Thoth instructional book. And then you can go down all sorts of rabbit holes collecting information from it as well. But the best thing is just to get a copy of it in your hands, look at the images, see how they feel to you when you're looking at them. Open your brain. What does this card tell you when you look at it? How does it feel in your body? If this card had a message for you, just by looking at it, what would it say? You know? Learn about the tree. Climb the tree. Anyway, so fun. So that is the Aleister Crowley Thoth deck. This is a vintage version, but there's lots of them around. Mass market as well. It's not going anywhere. Deck number 2 is Aleister Crowley's Thoth deck. Deck number 3. Are we ready for deck number 3? Best deck of all time. The third of the big 3, I have to pick a Marseille. I like to have a pip deck around. It's so good for reading for other people. And when I had to, this is the fun part though, is when I narrowed down all of the Marseille decks I had. There's so many cool ones. Which one does she pick? This one, it's not even like a true Marseille, but I can't put it down. I use this all the time. This is the Inversion Tarot. It is a US Games deck. It's in a handy little tin, great for travel, which they go with me. They make the rounds. By Jody Buginski-Barbesi. I never say it right. But yeah, it's based, the minors are based on the Roland Nordic Tarot, and the majors are Marseille. And it's a black and white one. And I think for Marseille, the color isn't quite, like, it is, but it's not the main, like especially with Thoth, color is kind of like a main component of the deck. Waite Smith, it's a pretty big component, so I don't want to mess with it too much. With Marseille, it's not as much, right? It's more about the directionality, who shows up where in relation to who, the numerology of the minors and that sort of thing. So a black and white fits really well for this, and I love a black and white deck, so there had to be at least one of them on the list, or else it wouldn't be a top 5 all the favorite decks of all time video, right? It's just so good. It's little, it shuffles beautifully, it's pocket size, it's good to whip out, I can read it so easily, but it's a jam. It's got reversals in it, because I like reversals. I don't know, it would be in the top 5 if I had to grab them, you know? And it's nothing particularly special, mass market, but it's just clear. It gives you answers. You have a question? You want an answer? It'll give you one. Sorry, we're losing the light. I forgot how fast the sun goes down these days. But anyway, if you know you're in the market, you're a beginner, you're looking for where to start, consider consider a Marseille deck for sure. And the book Untold Tarot is probably going to be your best friend while getting to know it. But I just, the way these cards interact, the directionality of the positioning of the figures on the major arcana and the court cards are really a great dynamic to add to a reading. You know, you can see which cards are interacting with each other, like literally where they're looking away from, the direction they're moving, if they're in night, and that sort of thing. So it's, I don't know, it's a really dynamic and great deck to just have around. And this one was my choice. So this one's called the Inversion Tarot, but really any version of a Tarot de Marseille would be a great place to start if you're a beginner. If we're considering this like a crossover best beginner decks video also. Right. Okay. Next. So those, we got our big three out of the way. Two more. Who's it gonna be? I almost forgot, but then I went, no, it's because it's with me all the time. This one lives in my purse. It doesn't even stay up here in the tarot room. It's because it's with me all the time, because I like to just, I end up almost arguably using it the most because it gets used when I'm out in other places, adventure tarot, at concerts, at the park, in the car on the way somewhere. It's just my favorite little travel guy. It's my most worldly tarot. It gets out and about. And what is it, you ask? It is the Ashera Tarot by Sarah Wheatley. I feel like I talk about it all the time, but maybe I don't, based on how it hides away, but it's incredible. I love the mandala aspect of the artwork. Again, this one, it is kind of its own little fun thing. It has flavor of Thoth, but it's not a Thoth deck at all because it really goes its own way in the imagery. But it does rely on color and it does rely on geometry, but in its own different, unique way. It has the same kind of themes. Our Kabbalah is kind of present here and there. Astrology, all the elemental work and the numerology. There's even I Ching hidden in a lot of the cards and the core cards. It's just, it's a joy. It's fun. It's colorful in a way that doesn't offend me, which is nice. I just think it's fantastic, and it made my top 5. It made my top 5 decks of all time. You can see the similarities to the Thoth. Remember when I was describing it before with the odds and the arrangement? Sort of the same thing, but also very different. But still, you get that same feeling of potential energy wrapped up inside it. The 9 of Cups, spirals, spilling their goods, cascading downwards, cups runneth over, and all of that jazz. So anyway, this is the little guy. There is a more tarot-sized version of this, but this pocket-sized one is my favorite. I love it so much. So, Sarah Wheatley, wherever you are out there, thank you for making one of the best decks ever. I'm obsessed with it. So that'll be going right back into my purse where it lives, so that I can grab it when I need it. Okay, so that's 4. It's 4 or 5. Are you ready for the last one? Almost didn't. I wasn't sure, but then I thought about it and went, oh, this deck and I have been through too much to not include. So it's making the list. The one on the honorable mentions almost kicked it off the list, but because I use the one on the honorable mentions list in such a specific way, and this one's a little bit more universal for me, it gets to stay. It's the Ritual Tarot by Theia May. Can't stop, won't stop. It and I have been through things, and at this point it's a friendship, me and this deck. We've bonded, I believe is what the kids say when they've got to a certain place with the deck and it starts to do things for you that only a deck that's that familiar with you could do. And that's what this one is for me. There's no titles on it, but I'm incredibly familiar with it, and actually the little guidebook that comes with it is very good. If I'm unsure at all about what the message from that card is at the time, in the book there's usually some unique bit of information, oh, I love that tower card, that clears it right up for me in a way that I maybe necessarily wouldn't expect. So I'm here for it. It's a top 5. It is the number 5. I have to have it. It's incredible. And there was talk of her maybe doing a pocket size as well, which would be incredible because then it could live in my purse also. But a devil card. Nice. I'm not entirely sure you can see these very well. I'll probably put some B-roll in for you. But anyway, it floats my boat. I say this, it's also been on a boat with me in which it got absolutely soaked by the sea, which again just adds another lovely little layer of experience to it. It had to be this one. So, the Ritual Tarot by TRMA. This one is also much like the Sarah Wheatley deck. It's an independently produced deck, so you have to get it from the creator, and it's definitely not mass market price, but I would pay for it. It is that special to me, and I have zero regrets about inviting it into my life at all. It fits, it gets on. There's so much to go on. Symbols for days. The atmosphere, I think the other thing about this deck is the atmosphere of it really resonates with me. It strikes a chord with me. It fills a part of my insides that just need the love. And it's really just everything. So I've pretty much used it every year for my year ahead spread. So I get to refer back to it every month when I reflect on that. It pairs really well with the Hellenic Oracle. Like really well. So yeah. It's my little friend. So, the Ritual Tarot by TRMA, number 5 in the my top 5 tarot decks of all time. So this would be the type of deck that if you resonated with its atmosphere, the symbols represented mean something to you already, I would say look into it for sure. If you look at it and kind of aren't sure, maybe wait a bit. Like, you'll know. When it comes to tarot decks, if you see one, you'll know when it's time for it to come into your life. There's a pretty distinct feeling, at least for me anyway, how that goes down. So if you're a beginner looking at decks sort of situation, once you've explored your big 3, your Waite Smith, your Thoth, your Marseille, and then kind of maybe another fun, more whimsical version, and want to strike out on something a little bit unique and different, a deck like this alongside your staples is going to be a great addition. Like something that you connect with and love and have that really close bond with. That's not just kind of like a pure information reference type of deck. If we can think of the Waite Smith and Thoth as more like a reference collection of information type deck. Have something that's a little bit more emotional, a little bit more evocative, a little bit more sensuous and environmental, that has a scenic quality to it that lights you up and really helps flesh out your readings in that way. So anyway, okay, those are the 5. Those are my top 5. My honorable mention that nearly made the list. Chris Leach's decks. I use this. This is the Odyssean Tarot. It's in a Crystal Haven bag. Here's what the backs look like. I pull a weekly card with this every week, and it's a practice I don't want to ever stop doing. This is a Greek mythology themed tarot deck. So as opposed to an oracle deck, which really has no bounds, no parameters, you can kind of, whatever the story in the myth, and the god or character or, you know, hero or lowly mortal, whatever the message in their story has to tell you is kind of the message in an oracle card, whereas this one, it's tied to an existing meaning structure, which is the tarot. So tarot itself, the system, the structure, the numbers, the suits, the colors, the letters, they all have their own meaning inherently. And then when you take that and then you smack it onto a theme, so in this case Greek mythology, it just adds an extra layer of meaning, which is great, and adds another layer of depth to jump into and swim around in with your brain. So I pull a card with this every week. This is one, because there's just so much information, and his guidebooks are so phenomenal. I go through it and I highlight like bananas out of each of the pages whenever I pull them. But it's one I like to use one card at a time every week, and I really honor that energy and let it fill my week with all of the different little tidbits of story that it has to teach me, and I'm just I'm just chuffed. I'm into it. I love it so much. And as I said, it's a practice that I'm not planning on stopping anytime soon. So his deck is an honorable mention. He also has another deck that it's so special I can't even talk about it. Hands up in the sky. It's so special I can't even talk about it. So just know that there's another one out there that's just mind-blowingly amazing for all sorts of reasons, and I can't talk about it. He also there was just a Kickstarter for a new one, a film noir themed one. He cranks out decks like nobody's business, and he's done a Shakespeare tarot as well, and a Bob Dylan one, and a Beatles tarot. There's a whole bunch. He's got like 8 or 9 decks at this point, but the Odyssean tarot and the other secret one, which I can't talk about, are the best. And they made the runner-up spot, the honorable mention, to my top decks of all time. So there you have it. There you have it. The light is gone. It is now dark. We got to watch the sun disappear on us. But yeah, those are them. That is the information that I've been meaning to get in a little concise little way for you guys for a while. So I hope you've enjoyed. Also, there will be a top 5 Oracle deck video coming soon. Next week, hopefully. That'll be a fun time. That might even be harder for me. I know I can think of 2 that need to be on that list. I'm not sure what the other 3 are going to be, so wish me luck, pray for me in that regard. But so thanks so much for being here, guys. I really appreciate it. If you want more of me, don't hesitate to join the member space for exclusive content, extra videos, private Discord chat, and all that jazz. If you have any questions about that, let me know. Otherwise, look after yourself. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see how you find people in the next video.